Hey guys, Thomas Genie here, aka Mustached, and welcome to the month of October, where I'm gonna try to review more horror-based things and catch up on horror-based movies. I saw a few I could collect and watch through. This particular one is called The Owners. If you end up enjoying these reviews, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. The second one will send you over to my Patreon page, and more on that at the end. This movie is called The Owners, and it's based on what's come out in the past. You might think inherently that this is based off of the movie Don't Breathe, the movie where a few robbers try to rob a house, but the person inside clearly has an advantage and turns the table. This is this exact setup, but this movie also claims that this is based off of a comic book, so I'm not sure if they took any inspiration from Don't Breathe, so keep that in mind. Anyway, so as expected, these four individuals are trying to rob this house. And we have our main ones. We have Terry, who's the guy on the poster on the left there, and Mary, who ends up joining them later on, is the lady in the front there. We have Nathan, who is probably... Nathan is the one I just mentioned. Terry is the one that is probably the character that is most inconsistent in the movie, which is unfortunate, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. And we have Ethan, the one that escalates things when the robbery happens. So initially, the guys are the ones to initiate this theft when the family leaves. So they drive up to the house and they enter inside, and it takes a little bit of pacing issue, by the way, is that they don't really set up too much in the beginning. Rather, they set up a lot of what's going on between characters while they're in the house, talking to the people they're trying to rob, which kind of jumbles a little bit in terms, again, in pacing. Anyways, Terry mentions when they get inside that he doesn't know where the safe is. Luckily, as stupid as that sounds, considering that he was the one staking out the house, apparently, according to this very movie, they end up forcing him downstairs, where apparently he never went for whatever reason, and then, good enough, he ends up finding the safe rather quickly. So, of course, they try to use various tools, and none of them can open the safe. But Mary is worried about them, so she's trying to get everyone's attention. They're still going at it. But eventually, Mary is convinced to join them. In fact, he convinces her to get a little bit of frisky in there. And before they know it, she admits that she is pregnant, which, okay. So, that changes the situation for him, makes him more wanting to do this for different reasons. And then they proceed to put on very terrible masks that you can clearly see through, so question mark on that one. They clearly did not plan this well at all. Anyway, so now they are waiting for the doctor who lives there, and this other older lady, I guess his caretaker slash lover, question mark? It seems to imply that in the movie anyway. And when they return, they are captured, and the doctor is taking note of various things. He catches Mary's tattoo, and I guess he's able to, from there, deduct who everyone else is except for one of them, which would be Ethan. So he knows their names and calls them out when Ethan is not around, so they figure, well, we don't need the mask anymore, so that's out of the question. But Ethan pulls out a gun, which escalates the situation. From there, Terry is forced to try to get the information out because he's conflicted now because the doctor is telling him information that is, he's trying to persuade him, pretty much. So they end up fighting, Terry and Nathan, and Terry is the one that is stabbed, but Nathan is the one that is clonked to death. The way the camera is shot, I assumed at first, anyways, that someone new entered the movie, but no, apparently this was Mary that did this, that came up and hit Nathan with the hammer. Anywho, the doctor grabs the gun, and we can clearly see this, and he also grabs the keys to, I believe, the house. So, they leave the body there, and Mary and Terry have a talk as he's nearly dying from the stab wound. And he's taken upstairs, proceedingly. Mary almost opens this box, which contains something that we don't know quite yet, but she is rejected from saying what it is. It's a mysterious little box. So the doors are locked, and Mary's starting to see that the situation that they're in is getting worse and worse. After throwing up, she sees that the doc had made a fake call to the hospital. So now she's really trying to get out, which you would think, out of her desperation, she would probably grab a heavy object and throw it out to the window before things get even worse. But she never attempts to do this, which, stupidity, I guess. Anyways, we have our conflicting character, Terry, now just chilling out of nowhere. This is probably where he becomes the most inconsistent character. At first, he was like, oh, I don't want to be here, and now he's suddenly like, oh, I want to stay here. Anyway, they cut Mary off from telling Terry the full truth about Ethan because she was there in the room with them and checked Ethan's vitals, so that he was dead, and tried to admit that. But while they are all at the table, she starts to throw these accusations at them. And instead, the doc chose some missing girls, or women I should say, very clear distinction. And Mary, again, is berating and trying to, flip the script, if you will. And Terry is just sitting there, almost like he's a part of the family or something. It's weird. So Mary finally gets it out that Ethan is dead, or tries to suggest that. And then we see the most unnecessary little scene where this bug comes back to life. I don't know, has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. Anywho, we see that Terry, after being treated at some point in the movie by the elder woman, that he can't walk normally, that he's paralyzed, that he can't put two and two together that, well, he kind of does, but he's still like, yeah, I'll do whatever with them. So after a convincing talk, the doctor had put her in this room and Terry lets her out. And after a while, he moves upstairs to see that she's trying to escape the house from the upstairs room, Now she's finally starting to use her brain, but before it's too late. Now the smoke is rolling in. They use these smoke grenades. Uh, so Mary's attention is put elsewhere, trying to, as the shutters are going down at this point in the movie. So Mary grabs the older woman's mask. They both, Doc and her, have masks. And the lady proceeds to open up the little box which has a needle in it, and she is stabbed. And Terry is knocked out from being plunged down the stairs a little bit. Meanwhile, the Doc strangles her a bit, but she manages to escape, grabbing a frying pan and clonking him in the head. Probably should have just went all out with that weapon, but she stops for whatever reason, and manages to cut off 2 of his fingers as they separate from a room. Her and the older woman and the Doc on the other side, with Terry on the other side as well. Mary, given in the situation she's in, is trying to get the keys back, as well as Terry. She's given both with the mask, and she proceeds to manage to get through the door. So they manage to bring him downstairs. The Doc and lady are already waiting there outside. However, from out of nowhere, she's suddenly shot by Terry. I don't know why. And the Doc opens the safe that they were trying to get through in the first place, to only reveal that behind the safe is a girl that they push Terry towards. They shut them in, and we cut to sometime later where Terry's mom is trying to figure out what's going on, but it's already too late, and she leaves the 2 of them as they are planting their dead corpses. And that was The Owners, in a recap. Like I mentioned before, the pacing is a bit off here, especially in the beginning. They don't really set much up in terms of who these characters are, so they have to really escalate the pacing when they are robbing the house. And, unfortunately, the Terry character ends up being the most inconsistent character, because he kind of goes from, as I mentioned, just wanting to leave, to wanting to stay, to pining for Mary because he thinks of the twin sister that he had dated, which is whatever, I guess, to being afraid of the family, to not being afraid of the family, to, trusting them complicitly, to fearing for his ending fate at the end of the movie. That is way too much going on, and it's a little, again, it's too inconsistent. As for Mary, they have her do pretty smart things too late in the movie. Her dumbness comes earlier on in the movie. Again, I mentioned how she could have probably tried a window solution earlier at some point in the movie, but she never does. And for me, I prefer when movies can have the characters acting smart, say have Mary do that, but have the Doc and wife character there also be equally as smart. Have them know that she's up there trying to escape and being ready for that or something. I don't know. There are definitely solutions to that kind of problem, and they don't handle it that well. As for Terry, our lead, not Terry, what's his name? I wrote it earlier, not Ethan. The first character. Nathan, the one that dies first. the guy you think is like the lead until Mary becomes the lead. Um, Nathan is a fine-ish character for the time he's allowed to be in the movie, I guess. Uh, it's clear, I want to say, I think they try to make him the most like the character from Don't Breathe. The guy is like, oh, I want to be here at first, but then I'm like, ooh, I'm conflicted. That sort of character. So yeah, there are definitely quite a few issues here. Uh, Definitely some conflicting points in the movie. Points in the movie where the thing you were trying to suggest is the smart thing, and it just doesn't happen for the sake of the ending that they want. When they can probably get to that conclusion and still have the characters be smart. It's completely possible. Anyways, I would probably give this movie like a 4 out of 10. It is probably a lot harder when your setup for your movie is your main characters are thieves, and you're trying to make your audience sympathize with characters because you want your characters to survive. That is something that horror movies tend to get wrong very, very often, a lot more than you think. I would actually argue that the percentile for unlikable characters is way higher than likable characters in horror, which is very unfortunate. I could probably name likable horror characters on one finger, unfortunately. You have your Ripley, you have, what's the woman from, I don't remember her name, because it's been way too long, the woman from the, Silent Hill movie, I don't remember her name in the movie. She was decent, you kind of rooted for her, a little bit anyways, at least I did. You have characters like that, where you're rooting for them. And then you have characters like this, which, when you have the setup of, again, robbers, it's a lot harder for you to sympathize with, and the character that they try to have you sympathize with the most ends up dying first, which I don't think is a good call, especially that early on in the movie anyway. So yeah, that wasn't a great decision. And again, the character's intelligence also hurts the movie more than it, does good for the movie. When you see the characters behaving wiser, like what I mentioned with Mary, you inherently, I think people would inherently root for that more, than, like, oh wow, she actually, people would say, oh wow, she actually thought of that, but, ... evil character, the owners, as the movie is called, would have a rebuke to that smart solution that is also equally as smart. And that's what would make this movie way stronger. Anyway, that's, I think, where I'll call this review. And again, if you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One led over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.